All right, good afternoon. We just want to quickly go through and share an update on the Pokemon Reinforcement Learning project. We had recently done some work to transition our starter from Squirtle to Charmander. We tried that, but eventually it ended up basically avoiding Misty's gym altogether because it really only ever had I would say a mid-level Charmander, usually in the 25 to 30 range, or Charmeleon, sorry. But it would get wiped out in the gym area, and so it avoided fighting Misty altogether. So then we switched it to Bulbasaur as a starter. We had much better progress. I'd given this basically about 150 million steps to go through, and it quickly shot through the gyms here. You can see basically, at first I'd gotten through at about the 10 to 15 million step mark. It was the first time that I had encountered Brock. And then you can see here, it quickly got into the point where it was actually starting to fight Misty. And then it went back, did some more learning, tried a couple things after it had kind of petered out for a little while. And then it got to the point where we were fairly regularly beating Misty with the agents. And the issue became it was transitioning to Vermilion City, and then one of the agents had managed to learn Cut, but they were basically wandering around aimlessly after that. So we need to put in a way to actually measure that they are learning Cut. And I only got this because I was happening to look through the folder at the screenshots at the time, because about every 50 steps, it takes a screenshot of what's on the screen. And I saw an Ivysaur in battle with Cut as one of its moves, and was surprised to see that it had actually gotten through the SSN to the point that it had learned Cut. But that meant now it needed to figure out what to do afterwards. And so I let it run for another cycle afterwards, and it got back to the SSN, but I couldn't confirm anymore whether it had learned Cut or not. And that started to present the problem. So what we're going to do today is we're going to add some measurements to the rewards that we are showing. One will be that the agents have learned Cut, and then the other will be whether they've actually used Cut. The second one's going to be a little bit harder because I don't know the right idea on how to implement that. Am I going to have to map out specific locations where there are cuts? If you look at the the map visualization, you can see here, it does show on the map where there are locations for Cut, but do I have to specifically tell it to do Cut at this area? Because in Generation 1, it's not just that you go up to the thing and you hit the A button and then you go Cut. You have to explicitly go into the menu at that point and do the Cut. And I think that may be one of the bigger challenges here in terms of the way that the agents operate, because they're essentially going around at random. If they click on this, it's going to say, this looks like a tree that you can cut, but then you have to go into the menu and select the Pokemon and then choose Cut from the menu for that Pokemon. And that may be really challenging for the agent to do. I'm trying to not do it where we explicitly say, go to this location, cut the thing, and then begin the next part, or go back to randomly exploring. But I was just trying to think through a couple different approaches that we can do for that, and then hopefully it will learn, oh, I need to cut this, and then go into the gym and try and beat it. And you can see here, we got pretty good progress in terms of the badges, and then the overall score, we're back up in that 2,500 range, which is where we got at our best run of about 500 million steps. Honestly, I could have let it go on for longer, but just seeing that it had done Cut meant we hit had learned Cut, we had hit a pretty significant milestone in terms of progress in the game. So I wanted to make sure that we could actually go ahead and measure that and then figure out a way that we could potentially learn Cut itself. So the idea here is to put in two functions. One is that they've learned Cut, and the other is that they've actually used Cut at certain locations and reward them for doing so. It'll be a small, probably single point for that. Learn Cut, I want to give significant weight, probably about the same as a badge, so about 200 points here. In terms of the reward, just so we are making sure that one of the Pokemon has cut in one of its move pools. So come down here. It really doesn't particularly matter where we put it. Just put here has learned cut. I need to make it self. And then the way to do this is to go through basically all of the move addresses to see what moves it has actually learned in the agent. So that's the part where it can get challenging for this. Let's just trying to think of like the best ways to go through and implement it, because we're probably going to have to do like the read M, which reads the memory value. And then I pulled this up here in the other tab. But essentially, like we need to go through all 6 Pokemon in the party, all 4 of their moves each time we go through here. So we got what, D173. So we go OX D173. Right, but then we need to do this over and over again. And each of them are going to be kind of the same thing. The next one should be the same. Great, but now we have to go get the, I'll just do this because we need the next number here from the memory list, so you can see it's a little bit different. Oops. But still the same. So I think that's right. Yeah, up to 2. We're going to let it assume. Oh, did this actually do the adjustment? Let's see. It did. All right, that's pretty awesome. So after the first one here, we got what we wanted. Oops. Yeah. That should be the last one here. And let's see if this auto corrects. So let's double check this value. Awesome. And I hope this works the way I want it to. We're going to keep double checking the whole way through. 226, and then the last one should be 24F. This is big in terms of it takes up a lot of space, but doing each of these reads shouldn't add too much. And then returning 0. So it's just a long series of ifs. We're just going to read through a whole bunch of memory values, returning here that amount. So then the other thing we want to do here is self.reward scale. And I just want to make sure that if we're adjusting other values, that this gets updated as well. Just making sure we give it a large reward for learning cut. This one, I want to leave it set aside for now. I just want to run with a quick test here to see if this will actually work the way that I want to. It shouldn't take long for the process to kick off, and then we can just see if it's learned cut. If it comes back immediately with a different value, like immediately coming back at the 200 level, then we also know like it's not behaving the way we intended for it. And so we can let that go too. So let's see. It shouldn't take more than a minute. I was trying to look at what some of the other folks have done in this project as far as this goes, and it seems really difficult. Okay, so we're going through here. It doesn't particularly seem to have any problems. There's no score here for learn cut, and then it would display to weights and biases when we get there. So I think that's fine for that. And then we need to really think about the approach in terms of this use cut reward here. So where is it? So we're just going to put in here def as just cut. For now, we're just going to return 0 as the base for it. So it should always come back as 0. That's fine. We can measure it, but then we need to figure out like the cut locations, and that's what I was trying to really try and figure out here as I was going through other ones. Just like what would be the best way to reward it. I've seen some people, they put like specific tile rewards. This basically just gave them 30 points for learning it. They had a similar thing for surf and strength. Let's see, what is this? Let's see if this is useful at all. Gotcha. Okay, so that just checks there. So this one had actually gone through and created a list of all the Pokemon that could learn cut, and then check to see if there was one of them in the party, and then if so, it essentially then removed the first move and gave it cut. Same thing for fly, surf, strength, flash, etc. It checked if there was a type of Pokemon that had it, and then essentially removed their first move to make it learn those HM values. So interesting. Yeah, so literally what it would do here, reading through this, is it would, if it were near a location where there was something to cut, it would check the direction away from that location. Then it would force the next action to be like the direction to move for the cut, and then do it. So like if I was moving from the right and then something was below me, it would move all the way to the location and then turn down and then do the action next. So it was like overwriting basically what was the normal behavior at this time. So it wasn't randomly doing it, but it specifically did it would get those actions. So it specifically mapped out the path to actually using cut correctly. It wasn't random. In terms of the actions it needed to take, it needed to go little by little. I could see this would be why I know like people have LLMs trying to beat Pokemon. Why this could create a loop, because essentially, if I pull up the map here, I'll use this as an example. The player screen might look something like this. The trainer moves to here. It realizes it now asks the LLM, what should I do? It then says, oh, I should take the action to cut. I open the menu. This is now covered. And it forgets what to do. And then after that, what is the correct thing to do? Oh, it says I should exit the menu, and then you get stuck over and over, kind of in a loop, or I move somewhere else. Especially when you're asking it like one thing at a time. That is the real hazard here. The best way to handle this, in my opinion, would be to ask it to take the next 5 moves. You can queue them up as actions for the emulator to take, which will be fine. And then it also helps get rid of some of the loops that the game encounters, especially at the beginning parts of games where, I should leave Professor Oak's lab, and then it leaves, and then, I should move up to get to there, and it immediately moves up. And they talked about that. The best way to combat that, like I said, would be to change this to something of having 5 steps queue for it to do. It would also help reduce some of the overhead of the LLM, number of calls to it, and then would also give you more actions that you could take along the way. This would get to be a little bit more challenging when it comes to battle, but if you think about it, like the actions in the menu to take, you're gonna push start, or you're gonna, when you're in the battle, you have that menu come up, you're gonna hit fight, you're gonna say whatever the ability is, the battle's gonna happen, and then you're gonna ask it like what should we do next. You're gonna probably put it back to the fight or the battle screen, and then have it like look at the moves, things like that. But I would start doing it where I'm queuing a series of moves here. And it seems like that's what they did here. The only thing the only thing that is different here is that it's like specifically laying out what actions to take to successfully do the cut. So like there's a very similar process for others. So I'm probably going to have to, or probably need to pull in something similar to what has been done. I know some folks have recently released some of their code publicly, so we can always pull off of that. But it seems like we have a small roadblock to do. You can see here the changes that I had put in more recently on the exploration side of things has started to affect them for moving out of the just general area of Pallet Town pretty quickly. Before, you would probably have a cycle or two. You're talking, the 200,000 steps or so before we'd even figure out like leaving Oak's lab reliably. Whereas you can see a large portion of ours have already gotten out of the lab. They're into other buildings, but eventually they'll start figuring out, especially because there are very little rewards up until you start to encounter your first real couple of trainers for them to obtain. I think there's one for, and that's why they're kind of all here, is to get the the town map item. And that's an event. There's another one out here. There's the trainer, or not the trainer, the person walking back and forth. He will give you the potion here. So there's another one in NAB, and then there's not. I don't believe there's another one for quite a little bit of time. So that's why they don't particularly, or they struggle for a little bit at the beginning to really get out. But then by focusing on these exploration rewards, you can kind of see what happens here. So just a reminder of what we had done. We had provided a reward for them for having more moves available to them. This constantly checks the locations around and sees which locations are valid and have not been visited before. So what this does is it incentivizes it from moving away from walls, which will keep the score higher, and then also not revisiting its tracks. There's the minor penalty for doing that. And then we have two other harsher penalties here for revisiting its location. So this revisit is if it's going back to the same location within the past 500 steps, you get the difference in the steps times negative 0.01. So if you revisited it last time, it's still a negative score. The goal here is to basically keep this 0. And you can see in previous versions here, over time, it actually does a good job in reducing the rewards here. You can see Frontier, the goal is to try and keep it higher. So you can see it tends to avoid keeping this low for too long. That's the directional reward, which we didn't have. Oh, this is long ago. I'm looking for this is the one from the other day. You can see here the total trend keeping up. You can see here it tries to keep the revisit score very low. The same thing here with this immediate revisit. So you can see there is a slow upward trend here, which is what we wanted it to do in terms of learning the best behavior. There was also a bug with the code that I implemented where it would only get a dead reward if it hit if it died in a Pokemon Center, which was really rare. So I fixed that up. Now we're starting to get proper deaths here along the way, which is fine. It's just to kind of discourage it from, I don't say bad behavior, from throwing itself at things over and over again. And you can see here the badge score trending up over time. So healer reward is growing. We doubled the reward there, but made it so it only happens if they've recently used a potion or if they healed at a Pokemon Center. One of the issues with Bulbasaur is that it learns the behavior of trying to maximize this reward if we didn't make the fix to constantly use Leech Seed and Growl as a way to farm the reward, especially at the points in the game where its health is a little bit lower. And so it's restoring a larger portion of its health every turn. So then you end up with a like a level 15 Bulbasaur fighting the early Rattatas and Pidgeys. It would take 2 to 3 health, but then instantly heal it back, and then that's about 5 points. About 0.25 points every round that happens, and so it starts to almost farm the healer reward heavily if we don't do that. Here we go with that Frontier, just trying to keep the number in general more positive, and then hopefully we can have the cut reward appear here where they're learning cut as a way to increase their score. I'm hoping, I really hope that this actually returns the value cut. I'm afraid if it is like all caps or something, that might treat it incorrectly. That is a concern that I have here, where I think it will return capital values for each of the moves. Let's see if they have it in the memory map here. Yeah, they are. Okay. So we'll have to kill that run, but all these should be cut capital. Let's do it this way. Mix all these up. All right, so we'll let that go. Oh, I need to restart the run. It's got to turn off all the emulators, and then we'll restart it. And what I'll do is I will transition over to there we go. We'll kind of call it here for today. What I'll do is I'll make all of the changes, and next time I'll go through and explain what it's doing for how to teach cut. If it doesn't, like, I'll create the code. We'll hopefully see that it's doing it on its own. There we go. If it can figure out cut, so we'll give it, because this is Thursday already, give us like time to learn all the way through the weekend, see if we can make that progress. If not, I will have the code write up already ready for how we can manually teach it. We'll talk through how it works, and then go ahead and implement that. So that way we can kind of cross that barrier, hopefully relatively quickly afterwards. And then should be making significant progress, because kind of after you learn cut, the world opens significantly within the game, because you have Surge's gym you need cut, Erica's gym you need cut. So you can go through and kind of knock those gyms out quickly. You don't need it for Koga, but then afterwards we have to figure out, once we get to Celadon, the, what is that called? It's like the gambler place. What's it called? Use the Pokecoins. I'm just blanking on it. Game Corner. And we have to go through that process in going there. And hopefully, we'll take it step by step. The goal here is that hopefully it's actually learning cut, so we have ways to measure that now. If it's not, we're going to put in ways to kind of force that process to make sure we're still continuing the exploration aspect of the game and really honing in on that. And then after that, we'll need to figure out things like, say, Game Corner. How is it actually going to explore that area? And hopefully we should make it to that point by the next Tuesday when we meet on this again. So next Tuesday, we'll either have it's learn cut on its own and hopefully made it into the gym, or we're going to have a way where then we will essentially force it to use cut at the right locations by saying, looking for specific points on the map. When you're there, you're now kind of taken into a subroutine that will force you to use cut, so that way you can hopefully explore the area and then immediately go back to random movements afterwards. So that would be the hope that we have that by next Tuesday. Between now and then, it's going to get about 500 million steps in to try that on, and we'll keep track of its progress. Over the course of the weekend, I will probably put up streams just on the progress of how the agents are progressing, so you can follow along with that. And then either later this evening or tomorrow, we'll continue the series where I'm using LLMs to help me build a basic website. We got the basics set up last time with some very simple typing games for kids, and then the idea is that we can continue that process of building out, I would say, more novice level games instead of like pure beginners. So things now where you're starting with typing 2 and 3 letter words, or that'll be the first level, and then after that will be like honing in on the home row keys, so that way hopefully they learn the proper way of addressing the keyboard. I like the way that project has started out. It seems fairly straightforward. We did some experimentation with the different LLMs. Claude was the best at actually generating code for us. I want to go back and visit. GPT-4.5 is now available. I want to see how it will handle, if it will handle that, and if not, like maybe we're using a group of those models together, or it's purely Claude at this point, but we'll see. So that's all for today. Basically, we've made good progress. We've now officially hit the cut wall of the game with Bulbasaur, but we did have one agent who actually had the cut move. we were not able to replicate that. So now we are putting in a way to measure it and make sure that we are seeing cut show up here as a reward. You won't be able to do anything with that for a while, but going through and checking the moves. And then we also have a path forward for next time where it's either going to learn this process on its own for cut, or we're going to force it to learn. And then if it's learning cut and not finding locations, we're also going to do a little bit to kind of help force it to learn those locations as well, because it's a brand new novel concept to them. And it's, I want to say, like kind of late in the game as far as reinforcement learning is concerned, to have an entirely new concept be thrown at it. A lot of times when you're seeing these, you think about it like individual levels of Mario or whatever, really self-contained, but this is truly like open world. And that's one of the biggest challenges here. So we're hoping that we don't have to cut any corners, but for next time, we do want to have that available in our back pocket and see if maybe we can, force an agent or two to learn the right way to do it, and then see if the others will pick up on that process. But we'll see. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you all next time.